The fluorescent lights in Colonel Harrison's office buzzed like angry hornets, casting a sickly yellow glow across the American flag standing rigid in the corner. Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez stood at parade rest, her spine straight as a rifle barrel, but inside, her world was collapsing like a controlled demolition. The manila folder on the colonel's desk might as well have been a loaded weapon pointed directly at her heart. "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez," Colonel Harrison began, his voice devoid of the warmth she'd known during her 8 years of exemplary service. He wouldn't meet her eyes. That told her everything before he spoke another word. "After careful review of the incident in Kandahar province on November 3rd, this command has determined that your actions constituted gross insubordination and a failure to execute direct orders under combat conditions." Maya's jaw tightened. The incident. They were calling it an incident now, as if reducing it to bureaucratic language could wash away the blood, the screams, the smell of burning wood and flesh that still invaded her dreams every night. She'd been embedded with a special forces team, providing intelligence and translation support during a high-value target raid in a village outside Kandahar. Her job was simple: identify the Taliban commander, facilitate communication, ensure the mission's success. But 3 days before the raid, her sources, Afghan civilians she'd spent months cultivating, warned her that the intelligence was wrong. The compound they planned to hit wasn't harboring a Taliban commander. It was a wedding celebration. She'd reported it up the chain, twice. Her commanding officer, Captain Mitchell Reeves, had dismissed her concerns. "The intel is solid," he'd insisted, his jaw set with the kind of stubborn certainty that got people killed. "We're going in as planned." The night of the raid, Maya had watched through night vision goggles as the team approached the compound. She heard music, laughter, the celebratory gunfire that marked Afghan weddings. Her radio crackled to life. "All units, you are green to engage." That's when she'd broken protocol. "Negative, negative, abort mission. Civilians on site, repeat, civilians on site." Captain Reeves had screamed at her to stand down, but she'd already moved, running toward the compound, weapon lowered, hands raised, shouting in Pashto for everyone to get down, to take cover. The team had hesitated, confused by her actions. Those 3 seconds of hesitation had saved lives, but not all of them. The Taliban fighters who actually were in the area, drawn by the commotion, had opened fire. In the chaos that followed, 2 Afghan civilians died, including a 12-year-old boy who'd been serving tea to wedding guests. 5 others were wounded. The actual Taliban commander they'd been hunting was never there. He was in Pakistan, laughing at American intelligence, planning his next attack. Maya had been right. Her sources had been correct. But in the Army's calculus, being right while disobeying a direct order was worse than being wrong while following one. "You compromised the mission," Colonel Harrison continued, finally looking up at her. His eyes were hard, unsympathetic. "Your actions put American lives at risk. Captain Reeves has filed a formal complaint. The investigating officer's report supports his assessment." "Sir, with respect," Maya began, but Harrison raised his hand. "I don't want to hear it, Rodriguez. You had your chance to make your case, and you did. The decision is final." He slid the discharge papers across his desk. "You're dismissed from active duty, effective immediately. General discharge under honorable conditions, but your security clearance is revoked. You'll surrender your common access card, your weapon, and your gear before you leave this base." The words hit her like physical blows. 8 years. 8 years of perfect service records, commendations, 2 Bronze Stars for valor in Iraq and Afghanistan. She'd given everything to the Army: her youth, her relationships, her sense of safety in the world. She'd learned to sleep with one eye open, to assess every room for exits and threats, to carry the weight of decisions that meant life or death. And now, because she'd saved lives, because she'd refused to be part of a massacre, it was all gone. "Sir," she tried again, her voice cracking despite her best efforts to remain professional. "Dismissed, Staff Sergeant." Harrison's tone was final. He picked up his phone, already moving on to his next task, erasing her from his concerns as easily as deleting an email. Maya took the papers with hands that trembled despite her iron will. She executed a perfect about-face, every movement sharp and precise even as her heart shattered. The walk down the hallway felt eternal. Other soldiers passed her, some nodding respectfully, others averting their eyes. Word traveled fast on a military base. By now, everyone knew she was being processed out in disgrace. She surrendered her gear to supply with mechanical efficiency, refusing to let the specialist behind the counter see the moisture threatening at the corners of her eyes. Her CAC card went into a collection box with a finality that felt like a funeral. The M4 rifle that had been her constant companion for years was tagged and stored, just another piece of equipment, nothing special. When she walked through Fort Bragg's main gate for the last time, still in uniform but no longer belonging, the North Carolina sun was setting in a blaze of orange and red. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it looked like the world was on fire. Her 15-year-old Honda Civic sat in the parking lot, covered in a thin layer of dust from weeks of deployment. As she unlocked it, she didn't notice the black SUV parked 3 rows away, its windows tinted dark. She didn't see the small camera tracking her movements, or the man inside speaking quietly into a satellite phone. "Target has exited the base," the man reported. She maintained composure throughout, emotional control excellent just as predicted. And the colonel performed his role. A voice crackled back through the phone. "Perfectly. She has no idea this was choreographed. Rodriguez believes her career is over." "Good, that's exactly what we need her to believe. Maintain surveillance. I want to know everything she does, everyone she talks to, every decision she makes in the next 30 days. If she's as strong as we think, she'll survive this. If not," the voice paused, "well, then she's not the right person for what comes next." The man in the SUV watched Maya's car pull out of the parking lot, heading toward an uncertain future. He smiled slightly, impressed despite himself. She had no idea that her real test was just beginning, or that her dismissal from the army wasn't an ending at all. It was an audition. And hidden watchers from the most classified corners of naval special warfare had just decided that Maya Rodriguez had passed with flying colors. Now, they just needed to see if she could survive the fall before they offered her a hand back up, into a world far more dangerous than anything she'd known in the conventional military. As Maya drove toward her small apartment in Fayetteville, her phone buzzed with sympathetic texts from friends she couldn't bring herself to read. She had one thought circling through her mind like a vulture. What now? She had no idea that in exactly 23 days, an unmarked envelope would arrive at her door with an answer she never could have imagined. 23 days felt like 23 years. Maya Rodriguez sat on the edge of her unmade bed in her cramped Fayetteville apartment, staring at the bottle of whiskey on her nightstand. It was 3:47 a.m., the same time she'd woken up every night since leaving Fort Bragg, drenched in sweat, heart hammering, the echoes of gunfire and screaming children still ringing in her ears. The bottle was half empty, or half full, depending on whether you were an optimist. Maya had stopped being an optimist on day 4 of civilian life. The apartment was a disaster, dirty laundry piled in corners, takeout containers breeding science experiments on the kitchen counter, blinds drawn tight against the North Carolina sun that felt too bright, too cheerful, too wrong for someone whose entire identity had been stripped away. She'd been a soldier. Now she was nothing. Her phone sat silent on the nightstand. The sympathetic texts had stopped after the first week when she'd stopped responding. Her mother called daily from Colorado, voice tight with worry that Maya couldn't bear to hear. Her younger brother, still in college, had sent increasingly desperate messages. "Maya, please, just let us know you're okay." But she wasn't okay, she was drowning. The job applications she'd started felt like cruel jokes. "Please describe your relevant experience." What was she supposed to write? expert in small arms combat, fluent in the language of violence, can disassemble an M4 rifle blindfolded but can't seem to make small talk with civilians about their weekend plans. The Veterans Affairs Office had scheduled her an appointment with a counselor. She'd sat in the waiting room for 45 minutes, watching other broken soldiers shuffle in and out, before walking out without seeing anyone. She wasn't ready to talk about Kandahar, wasn't ready to talk about the blood on her hands, even if that blood had been spilled trying to save people. The recurring nightmare was always the same. The 12-year-old boy, Rashid, his name was Rashid, she'd learned that after, carrying a tea tray, smiling despite the war that raged around his village. Then the gunfire, his small body crumpling, his mother's wails, and Captain Reeves screaming at her, blaming her, even though she'd been trying to stop it, trying to prevent it, trying to. Maya grabbed the whiskey bottle and took a long pull, welcoming the burn that pulled her back to the present. The knock on her apartment door made her jump, hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Old habits. The clock now read 9:17 a.m. Had she blacked out? The hours seemed to bleed together lately. She stumbled to the door, still wearing yesterday's clothes, sweatpants and an army PT shirt she probably shouldn't still own. Peering through the peephole, she saw nothing. No one. She waited 30 seconds, combat instincts screaming at her to be cautious, then slowly opened the door. The hallway was empty. But on her doormat sat a plain manila envelope. No postage, no return address, just her name typed on a white label, SGTM RODRIGUEZ. Not Ms. Rodriguez, not Maya Rodriguez, SGT Sergeant. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked it up, scanning the hallway one more time. Whoever delivered this had come and gone like a ghost. The envelope was light, containing maybe a single sheet of paper. She brought it inside, locked the door, and stood in her kitchen staring at it for a full minute. It could be anything. Probably just more paperwork from the army, some final bureaucratic nail in her coffin. Maybe a bill, maybe. She tore it open. Inside was a single white card, expensive cardstock, with 4 lines printed in crisp black text. 36, 8,508 degrees N, 76, 0583 degrees W. January 8, 2026. 2100 hours. Come alone. Maya's breath caught. Coordinates. A date that was today. A time 9 p.m. military format, and an instruction that made her skin prickle. She moved to her laptop, one of the few things in the apartment that still worked properly, and plugged the coordinates into Google Maps. The pin dropped in Virginia Beach, Virginia, about 3 hours north. The location appeared to be an industrial area near the waterfront, an abandoned warehouse district from the satellite view. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was insane. It could be anything. A prank from vindictive former colleagues, a trap, some stolen valor wannabe playing soldier. Going to an abandoned warehouse at night, alone, based on an anonymous note, was exactly the kind of thing that ended badly in every horror movie ever made. But something else stirred in her chest, something she hadn't felt since walking out of Fort Bragg: curiosity, purpose, the faint electric tingle of a mission. The precision of the message spoke to her. Military time, exact coordinates down to 4 decimal places. The brevity. This wasn't some amateur operation. Whoever sent this understood protocol, understood how to communicate with someone who'd lived in the military world. And they'd called her Sergeant. Maya showered for the first time in 3 days, the hot water scouring away the fog of whiskey and despair. She dressed deliberately: dark jeans, black tactical boots, a jacket with concealed pockets. Old training kicked in automatically. She couldn't carry her service weapon anymore, but she had a civilian Glock 19 she'd purchased legally. She loaded it, press-checked the chamber, and holstered it at her waistline. As sunset painted the sky purple and orange, Maya stood in her apartment doorway, keys in hand, staring at the envelope on her counter. Last chance to back out. Last chance to stay safe, stay small, stay broken. Instead, she grabbed her phone, pulled up the coordinates one more time, and walked out the door. The drive to Virginia Beach took 2 hours and 47 minutes. Maya spent it in silence, radio off, running through tactical scenarios in her head. Best case, someone wanted to offer her a job, private security maybe. Worst case, ambush. She'd be ready for either. The GPS guided her off the interstate and into increasingly desolate streets. Warehouses loomed like sleeping giants, their windows dark and empty. Chain-link fences topped with razor wire. Shipping containers stacked like metal building blocks. The smell of salt water and rust filled the air. At exactly 2100 hours, she pulled into the parking lot of the coordinates. An old textile warehouse, its facade crumbling, graffiti tagging the lower walls. One sodium light flickered weakly, casting more shadow than illumination. Her car was the only vehicle visible. She killed the engine and sat listening, watching. 2 minutes, 3, nothing moved. Maya stepped out of the car, hand near her weapon, every sense on high alert. The warehouse's main door was industrial steel, slightly ajar, an invitation, or a trap. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez. The voice came from the shadows to her left, calm and authoritative. You're exactly on time. I appreciate punctuality. A man emerged from behind a shipping container, hands visible, non-threatening posture. He was maybe 45, fit, with the bearing of someone who'd spent time in the military. But there was something else about him. An edge. A confidence that went beyond conventional service. He wore civilian clothes, dark pants, a jacket, tactical boots, but moved like a predator. "Who are you?" Maya demanded, hand hovering near her holster. "My name is Carter," he said, stopping 10 feet away, respecting her space. "That's all the name you need for now. I apologize for the dramatic summons, but discretion was necessary." "Discretion for what?" Carter smiled, a slight upturn of his lips that didn't quite reach his eyes. "For this conversation. The one where I tell you that your dismissal from Fort Bragg was necessary theater, that you've been under evaluation for the past 2 years, and that everything you thought you knew about your career, your mission in Kandahar, even your current situation, is about to change completely." Maya's hand moved to her weapon. "You have 30 seconds to explain before I leave." "Fair enough." Carter pulled out a tablet from his jacket slowly and tapped the screen. He turned it to face her. On it was a dossier, her dossier, but not the official Army version. This one contained mission reports she'd never seen, assessment scores from observers she'd never known existed, and a header that made her blood run cold. JSOC Special Access Program. Candidate MRODRIGUZ. Status approved for recruitment. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Carter said, his voice suddenly heavy with importance. Your real mission doesn't start with your dismissal. It starts right here, right now, if you have the courage to say yes. What I'm about to offer you is dangerous, deniable, and will require you to become someone else entirely. You'll have no recognition, no safety net, and if you die, no one will ever know what you sacrificed. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. But you'll also have the chance to do more good, save more lives, and strike at threats most people don't even know exist. The question is simple. Are you interested in the truth about who you really are and what you're capable of? Maya stared at him, at the tablet, at the impossible offer hanging in the salt-tinged air between them. Her heart pounded. Her instincts screamed both danger and opportunity. "I'm listening," she finally said. Carter's smile widened. "Good. Let's talk about the mission that's going to define the rest of your life." Carter gestured toward the warehouse. "We should talk inside. The walls have better soundproofing than this parking lot." Maya followed him through the steel door, her hand still near her weapon, every instinct on high alert. Inside, the warehouse was mostly empty except for a folding table in the center with 2 chairs, a laptop, and a battery-powered lantern casting harsh shadows across the concrete floor. The setup was temporary, professional, and utterly untraceable. This wasn't Carter's office. This was a dead drop for information too sensitive to discuss anywhere with a permanent address. "Sit," Carter offered, taking one chair and opening the laptop. Maya remained standing. "I'll hear what you have to say from here." "Suit yourself." Carter typed a password, and the screen illuminated his face with a pale glow. 2 years ago, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. You'd know them as SEAL Team 6, though they hate that name, partnered with CIA's Special Activities Center on a problem that keeps getting worse. Human trafficking networks operating in Eastern Europe and the Middle East aren't just selling people anymore. They're functioning as financial arteries for terrorist organizations. He pulled up a map showing routes highlighted in red, snaking from Romania through Ukraine, Turkey, and into Syria and Iraq. These networks move women and children like cargo, generating approximately $200 million annually. That money funds weapons purchases, training camps, and operational cells across 3 continents. Traditional military strikes can't touch them because they hide among civilians. Traditional intelligence operations can't penetrate them because they're family-based organizations with blood loyalty going back generations. Maya stepped closer despite herself, studying the map. Her mind immediately began analyzing routes, choke points, vulnerabilities, old habits. "We've tried everything," Carter continued. "Signals intelligence, human sources, cyber operations. We can track the money, but we can't stop it without understanding the complete network, names, locations, procedures, the full architecture. To do that, we need someone on the inside. Someone who can speak the languages, survive in hostile environments, and most critically," he looked up at her, his eyes intense, "someone with the moral courage to make hard decisions when headquarters is thousands of miles away." "Kandahar," Maya said quietly. "Exactly. Most soldiers follow orders, even bad ones. You didn't. When you saw Captain Reeves about to massacre a wedding party, you violated the chain of command to prevent it. That incident got you dismissed." Carter leaned back. "It also got you selected for this program. We need someone who won't just follow orders blindly, because where you're going, we can't control every decision. You'll need to improvise, adapt, and choose the right path when the only guidance you have is your own judgment." Maya's throat tightened. "You're saying my entire dismissal was, what, a setup?" "Not exactly. The dismissal was real. We just made sure it happened the way we needed it to. Colonel Harrison genuinely believed you deserved to be processed out. Captain Reeves genuinely filed those complaints. Your records genuinely show a general discharge. But there were people watching, people who saw something different in that situation. We saw someone willing to sacrifice her career to save innocent lives. That's rare, Rodriguez. Rarer than you know." He pulled up another file. Photos of women and children, some bruised, some hollow-eyed, some barely teenagers. "These are some of the people trapped in this network right now. Kidnapped from villages, lured with false job promises, stolen from refugee camps. They're being moved, sold, used, and discarded. And the money from their suffering is buying bullets that kill American soldiers and innocent people worldwide." Maya stared at the faces. A girl who couldn't be more than 15, her eyes dead despite being alive. A woman holding a baby, both looking terrified. A boy Rashid's age, with bruises on his arms. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Maya's voice was steady, but her hands had curled into fists. "Infiltrate the network," Carter said simply. "We'll create a cover identity so deep that even you'll start to believe it. You'll approach them, let them recruit you, work your way up until you're close to the leadership. You'll gather intelligence, identify key players, map the entire operation. When we have enough, DEVGRU will execute a coordinated takedown across multiple countries simultaneously." "How long?" 6 months to a year, possibly longer. You'll be completely isolated. No contact with family, no backup you can call for help, no safety net. If you're compromised, we'll disavow any knowledge of you. Your legal protection will be non-existent. you'll essentially be committing crimes, smuggling, illegal border crossings, possibly worse, with no official sanction. Maya processed this, and the training, you said something about SEALs. Carter's expression grew more serious. This is the part where most candidates walk away. To survive this mission, you'll need to undergo a condensed version of basic underwater demolition SEAL training. Not the full 6 months, but a 90-day program that'll make you wish you'd chosen the full version instead. You'll train alongside SEAL operators at a classified facility. The instruction will be brutal, probably more brutal than anything you experienced in the Army, and there will be absolutely no allowances made for the fact that you're a woman. Maya finished flatly. I was going to say not a SEAL candidate who volunteered for this knowing what they were getting into. But yes, that too. Carter didn't look apologetic. The instructors won't care about your previous service, your awards, or your reasons for being there. They'll try to break you. Most people quit. The question is whether you can survive it. Maya walked to the far wall, her mind spinning. This was insane. Everything about this was insane. She'd be giving up any chance of rebuilding a normal life, potentially for years. She'd be alone, at constant risk, with no recognition or protection. If she died, her family would never know the truth. They'd only know her as the disgraced soldier who fell apart after discharge. But those faces on Carter's screen burned in her memory. Children who looked like Rashid. Women who deserved better than to be currency in a terrorist economy. Why me specifically? She asked, turning back. There have to be other soldiers with my qualifications, other people who could do this. There are, Carter admitted, but they don't have your specific combination of skills and psychology. You're fluent in Pashto and Arabic, truly fluent, not just conversational. You spent 18 months embedded in Afghan communities, building genuine relationships with locals. You understand how to operate in cultures where women are viewed differently. And most importantly, you've already proven you can disobey orders when lives are at stake. That makes you unpredictable to conventional military thinking, but perfect for this work. He stood, closing the laptop. There's also the fact that your public disgrace is real. You're not just playing a part. You genuinely were dismissed, genuinely are unemployed, genuinely have a reason to be angry at the system. That authenticity is impossible to fake. When you approach this network as someone desperate for money and opportunity, you won't be acting. Part of you will mean it, and that'll make your cover unbreakable. Maya felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. When would training start? 72 hours. We'll stage a very public breakdown for you, bar fight, arrest, the works. Your descent needs to look authentic before we pull you out for training. Then 3 months at the facility, 3 months building your cover identity and insertion by month 7. You need to decide now, Rodriguez. Once you walk out of here, this offer disappears forever. She looked at the lantern, its light casting her shadow long across the concrete. In that shadow, she could still see the soldier she'd been, the career she'd lost, the identity that had defined her entire adult life. But she could also see something else, a chance to matter again, to save people who had no one else to save them. I have conditions, Maya said finally. Carter nodded. Name them. First, if I gather intelligence that innocent lives are in immediate danger, I need authorization to act without waiting for approval from headquarters. I won't be part of another Kandahar. Agreed within reason. Continue. Second, when this is over, if I survive, I want my record fixed, not just sealed but cleared. Those commendations I earned before, I want them reinstated. Done. Third, Maya's voice caught slightly. If I die, my mother gets told the truth. Not immediately, not in detail, but eventually. She deserves to know her daughter died doing something that mattered. Carter was quiet for a long moment. That's difficult security protocols. Non-negotiable, Maya interrupted. My mother has already lost her daughter once to disgrace. If she loses me permanently, she deserves better than the lie. Carter studied her face, then slowly nodded. I'll make it happen. 10 years after your death, if it comes to that, she'll receive a letter explaining what you really did. That's the best I can promise. Then I accept. The words hung in the warehouse air, heavy with implications. Maya had just agreed to become someone else, to disappear into darkness, to risk everything for a mission that might kill her or break her, or leave her stranded in enemy territory with no hope of rescue. Carter extended his hand. Welcome to the program, Operator Rodriguez. Your old life ended at Fort Bragg. Your new one begins in 72 hours. Don't bring anything with you that you'll miss. You won't see it again for a very long time. Maya shook his hand, his grip firm and sure. As she walked back to her car under a sky full of stars, she couldn't quite see through Virginia Beach's light pollution. She realized something had shifted. The crushing weight of the past 3 weeks had lifted slightly, replaced by something sharper, cleaner. Purpose. She had a mission again. And this time, no one would stop her from doing what was right. The Pacific Ocean at 4 in the morning was liquid hell. Maya couldn't feel her fingers anymore, or her toes, or really anything below her neck. The water temperature hovered around 53 degrees, cold enough to kill you if you stayed in long enough, cold enough to make your brain scream that you were dying even when you weren't. She'd been in the surf for 47 minutes, sand grinding against every exposed inch of skin, salt water filling her mouth and nose with each wave that crashed over her head. Move it, Rodriguez. Instructor Garrett's voice cut through the roar of the ocean. You think the enemy cares that you're cold. You think the people you're supposed to save give a damn about your discomfort. Get up. Maya forced herself to her feet in the chest-deep water, legs shaking, and began running in place, high knees, just like the 5 men beside her. 5 Navy SEAL candidates who'd volunteered for this hell, who dreamed of wearing the trident, who belonged here in a way she never would. They were younger, stronger, and unlike her. They'd had months to prepare mentally for what was coming. She'd had 72 hours. The classified facility sat somewhere in California. They'd blindfolded her during transport, so she couldn't be sure exactly where. It looked like a standard military training base, but the security was tighter than anything she'd seen at Fort Bragg. No signs, no unit designations, no identifying markers anywhere. Just anonymous buildings, obstacle courses that looked like medieval torture devices, and instructors who seemed to hate the very concept of rest. This was day 5 of Hell Week, and Maya had learned a fundamental truth about human endurance. The body can survive almost anything. It's the mind that quits first. Out of the water, move, move, move. They ran up the beach, stumbling, falling, getting back up. Maya's legs felt like concrete, her lungs burned with each breath, and her entire body trembled uncontrollably from hypothermia. The break consisted of 60 seconds to catch your breath before. Log PT, grab your BOATS. The inflatable boats weighed maybe 200 pounds each, and they'd been carrying them for what felt like years but was actually just 4 days. 6 people to a boat, hoisting it overhead, running with it, doing push-ups with it resting on their backs, holding it at arm's length until muscles screamed and torn and rebuilt themselves. Maya positioned herself under the boat with the others, feeling the weight settle across her shoulders like judgment. Her arms shook as they lifted. Rodriguez. Instructor Chen appeared in her face, nose to nose, screaming, "You're weak, you're slow, you're dragging down your entire team. Why are you even here?" This was the game. They'd break you down mentally while destroying you physically, looking for the moment when you'd had enough, when you'd quit. The brass bell sat on a post near the instructor platform, gleaming even in the pre-dawn darkness. Ring it 3 times and your pain ended. Hot shower, warm food, medical attention, blessed sleep. All you had to do was quit. 17 people had started this condensed program 9 days ago. 10 had already rung the bell. Overhead press, UP, DOWN. Maya's vision grayed at the edges. Her arms were beyond pain now, operating on something else entirely. Maybe spite, maybe stubbornness, maybe just the refusal to let Chen be right about her. The worst part wasn't the physical torture. It was the sleep deprivation. They'd allowed them maybe 4 hours of sleep total since Hell Week began. Not consecutive, broken into 15-minute intervals that barely qualified as unconsciousness before whistles blew and they were back in the surf. Maya had started hallucinating on day 3. She saw her mother standing on the beach, crying, asking why Maya was doing this to herself. She saw Rashid, the Afghan boy, his ghost following her through obstacle courses. She saw Captain Reeves laughing as she struggled through the sand. Boat over your HEADS, sprint to the berm. Her legs moved on autopilot. Left, right, don't think, just move. The teammate in front of her, a SEAL candidate named Morrison, stumbled and went down. The boat crashed onto Maya's shoulders with its full weight. She heard herself scream but kept moving, kept pushing, because stopping meant falling and falling meant failing and failing meant RODRIGUZ, you're pathetic. Day 6 blurred into day 7. Or was it day 8? Time lost all meaning. There were evolutions, exercises designed to break you in creative ways. Log PT where you held telephone poles overhead until you physically couldn't anymore. The obstacle course run in full gear while instructors threw smoke grenades and fired blanks to simulate combat. Distance swims in water cold enough to stop your heart. And always back to the surf. The hallucinations got worse. Maya started having conversations with people who weren't there. During a night exercise, shivering in the sand during a brief respite, she could have sworn Carter was standing next to her, explaining the mission details again. But when she turned to answer him, there was only darkness and the sound of waves. "You're not good enough," Instructor Garrett screamed in her face during log drills. "You'll never be good enough. Just ring the bell and end this." The bell, God, the bell, it called to her like a siren song. During every break, every moment of rest, she could hear it in her mind. Just 3 rings, 3 simple pulls of a rope. The pain would stop. The cold would end. She could sleep, really sleep, for the first time in what felt like years. On day 9, or was it 10, they ran the obstacle course again. Maya's hands were raw, bleeding through the medical tape. Her shoulders had deep purple bruises from the boat. She'd lost 12 pounds she didn't have to lose. As she climbed the cargo net, arms shaking, legs barely functioning, she looked over at the instructor platform. The bell was right there, shining, perfect, merciful. Her hand reached out toward it even though she was still on the net. "Just climb down, walk over, 3 rings, it's okay to quit. Everyone understands, you've already proven yourself. You don't have anything left to prove." Then she saw them. Not a hallucination this time, but a memory so vivid it might as well have been real. The faces from Carter's laptop. The 15-year-old girl with dead eyes. The woman clutching her baby. The boy with bruises. The people suffering right now while she hung on this net debating whether to quit. If she quit, who would save them? Who else had her language skills, her cultural knowledge, her stubborn refusal to follow orders that would get innocent people killed? Carter had chosen her specifically because she was willing to sacrifice everything for what was right. What was a little more suffering compared to what those people endured every day. Maya pulled herself up the net instead of down, over the top, down the other side. Her feet hit the sand and she ran, stumbled really, but kept moving toward the next obstacle. RODRIGUZ. Instructor Chen's voice held something different now. Surprise, maybe, or respect. Keep moving. The final evolution of Hell Week came on day 11. They were in the surf again, of course they were, but this time it was different. The instructors stood in a line on the beach, watching silently. No shouting. No harassment, just observation. "Anyone who WANTS out, ring the bell now," Garrett called. "Last chance." Maya looked at the 4 people still standing beside her. Morrison, who'd helped her up more times than she could count. Different Chen, a trainee, not the instructor, who'd shared his energy gel during a ruck march. Patterson and Williams, both quiet professionals who just kept going no matter what. They'd started as strangers. Now they were something else. Brothers in arms and sister in arms. Nobody moved toward the bell. "Secure from Hell Week," Garrett shouted. "Get out of the water." They stumbled onto the beach, barely able to process what they'd just heard. Maya fell to her knees, not from exhaustion but from the sheer emotional release of having survived. 11 days that felt like 11 years. She'd made it. Instructor Garrett walked over, standing above her. Maya braced for more punishment, more insults. Instead, he extended his hand. "Outstanding work, Rodriguez. You just did something 90% of people couldn't do. Get some rest. Real training starts tomorrow." Maya took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. Real training. This was just the warm-up. She started laughing, couldn't help it. Delirious, exhausted, hypothermic laughter that bordered on hysteria. Morrison clapped her on the back, nearly knocking her over. "We made it," he kept saying. "Holy shit, we actually made it." They were led to barracks with real beds, and allowed to shower in water that felt like heaven. Maya stood under the hot spray for 20 minutes, watching sand and blood circle the drain, feeling her body slowly remember it was human. When she finally emerged, wearing clean clothes that felt like silk even though they were just standard-issue sweats, Carter was waiting in the hallway. "Impressive," he said simply. "The instructors didn't think you'd make it past day 3. You proved them wrong." "What happens now?" Maya's voice was hoarse from screaming, salt water, and disuse. "Now you become a weapon," Carter smiled. "Hell Week just proved you won't break under physical pressure. The next 10 weeks will teach you how to break everyone else, how to infiltrate, manipulate, survive, and complete a mission even when everything goes wrong. By the time we're done with you, Maya Rodriguez will be a ghost, and in her place will be someone capable of things you can't imagine yet." Maya looked back at the barracks where her team was probably already unconscious in their bunks. She thought about the bell she hadn't rung, the quit she hadn't taken. "Good," she said. "When do we start?" Carter's smile widened. "You just did. Welcome to the program that doesn't exist, Operator Rodriguez. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we teach you how to lie so well even you believe it." As Maya collapsed into her bunk, her last conscious thought was simple. She'd survived hell. Now she just had to survive becoming someone else entirely. The bar fight was beautiful in its choreography. Maya still Maya for now, but not for much longer. Threw the first punch at exactly 11:47 p.m. on a Friday night at a dive bar called O'Malley's in Fayetteville. The target was a man named Derek, actually an agency asset, who'd been specifically instructed to say something provocative about washed-up soldiers who couldn't hack it. She hit him hard enough to make it look real, but not hard enough to actually hurt him. He went down theatrically, beer spilling everywhere. His 2 friends, also assets, jumped in. The bartender, another asset, called the cops. By midnight, Maya was in handcuffs, screaming obscenities at the officers, playing the role of broken veteran so convincingly that even she felt the character bleeding into reality. The mugshot made the local news. Disgraced former Army staff sergeant arrested after bar brawl. Perfect. Her mother called 18 times. Maya didn't answer. That part wasn't an act. The guilt was real, acidic, burning in her chest. This was the beginning of Myra Kovalenko's birth, and it required Maya Rodriguez to die publicly, spectacularly, and completely. The safe house in Alexandria, Virginia, looked like a suburban home from the outside. Inside, it was a factory for creating ghosts. Carter introduced her to the team on day 1. "This is Alina Volkov, your legend specialist. She'll build your backstory. This is James Park, documents and cyber identity. And this is Dr. Sarah Chen, your psychological conditioning specialist." Alina was a former CIA operative, Russian by birth, American by choice, and utterly ruthless in her attention to detail. She sat Maya down at a kitchen table covered in photographs, documents, and a laptop, and began the interrogation. "Tell me about Myra Kovalenko," Elena said. "I don't know who that is," Maya replied. "Wrong answer, try again." This went on for 6 hours. Elena asked the same questions hundreds of ways until Maya began answering without thinking. Where was Myra born? Odessa, Ukraine, 1994. Parents: father died in industrial accident 2008. Mother remarried, moved to the United States 2010. Green card obtained through mother's marriage to American citizen. Why did Myra need money? Student loans from a 2-year community college program she never finished. Dead-end jobs. An ex-boyfriend who left her with debt. Desperation. What does Myra want? Elena asked on day 3. Stability, money, a way out. Wrong. Myra wants what everyone wants to matter. She's tired of being invisible, being used, being poor. She wants respect, even if she has to earn it by working in gray areas. She's not a criminal, but she's willing to bend rules because the world has never played fair with her. Understand the difference. Maya did. A legend wasn't just a backstory, it was a psychology, a motivation, a complete human being with dreams and fears and contradictions. James Park worked on the digital footprint. He showed Maya a Facebook profile that dated back to 2011. This is you, Myra, at 16, posting from Odessa. Here's you at 18, newly arrived in America, excited about McDonald's and Starbucks. Here's you at 20, complaining about a statistics professor. Every post, every photo, every friend connection has been carefully constructed. The photos were remarkable. Some were photoshopped. Maya's face digitally placed into group shots with strangers who'd been paid to take pictures years ago. Others were real photos of Maya that had been altered slightly, changed just enough that they looked like they came from different times and places. There were even videos, short clips of Myra at parties, at work, living a life that had never happened. "We've been building this identity for 8 months, James explained. Ever since you were flagged as a potential recruit, every post has been backdated, every interaction manufactured to create algorithmic authenticity. Facebook's AI thinks you're real because you've existed in their system for over a decade." Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of them showed Myra's life in careful detail. A struggling student, a waitress at various restaurants, a woman trying to build something from nothing. The employment history was backed by real companies, businesses that had been paid to include her in their records, to confirm she'd worked there if anyone called. "Your credit score is 580, James said with professional pride. "You have 3 maxed-out credit cards, a car loan that's 2 months behind, and collection agencies calling you. You're exactly the kind of person criminal organizations look for, desperate but not suspicious." Dr. Sarah Chen's work was the most unsettling. She used techniques borrowed from method acting, deep cover training, and psychological conditioning to help Maya not just pretend to be Myra, but to actually become her in the moments that mattered. "Close your eyes," Dr. Chen instructed during their first session. "Tell me about your childhood as Myra." Maya began reciting the legend. Playing in Odessa's streets, the smell of the Black Sea, her father teaching her to fish before the accident. "No," Dr. Chen interrupted. "You're reciting. I want you to remember. What did your father's hands look like?" Maya paused, then let her imagination fill in details. Rough, calloused from factory work. He had a scar on his left thumb from when a machine caught him. He always smelled like motor oil and cigarettes. "Good. What did your mother cook when you were sad?" "Borscht. Not the fancy kind, the simple kind with potatoes and beets. She'd let me add the sour cream, and I'd always add too much." "Better, now open your eyes and tell me, are you Maya or Myra?" Maya hesitated. The memories she just created felt oddly real, like shadows of actual experiences. "I don't know." Dr. Chen smiled. "Perfect. That confusion is exactly where you need to live. The most effective deep cover operatives aren't the ones who pretend best. They're the ones who can actually shift their identity temporarily. You'll need to be Myra so completely that you think in Ukrainian when you're stressed. You flinch at references to your father's death. You genuinely feel the desperation of her situation. Over the following weeks, Dr. Chen used everything from hypnosis to immersive roleplay to embed Myra's memories alongside Maya's real ones. It felt like developing a split personality, except it was controlled, deliberate, and temporary. At least, it was supposed to be temporary. Meanwhile, Maya's public spiral continued. Her social media, her real Maya Rodriguez accounts showed the descent. Angry posts about the military, photos at bars looking drunk and disheveled, arguments with friends in comment sections, a GoFundMe that barely raised any money for therapy and rent. The local newspaper ran a follow-up story. From decorated soldier to troubled veteran, one woman's fall. Her mother finally stopped calling. That hurt more than the training. 3 months in, Alina conducted a surprise test. Maya was out getting coffee, a rare break from the safe house, when a man bumped into her on the street. Myra Kovalenko, he said with a thick Russian accent. Maya's heart stopped. This wasn't part of the training schedule. Was this real? Was her cover already blown? I think you have me confused with someone else, she said carefully, American accent perfect. No, from Odessa. We went to school together. You don't remember Boris. Maya's mind raced. The legend included childhood friends, but no Boris. This was a test, had to be, but what if it wasn't? She softened slightly. Boris, my God, it's been so long, how are you? They talked for 5 minutes. He asked about her mother, her life in America. Maya responded with Myra's details, her Ukrainian-accented English emerging naturally when she got emotional about her father. Finally, Boris smiled, handed her a business card and walked away. Back at the safe house, Alina was waiting. Congratulations, you just passed your first field test. That was one of my associates. You didn't break character once. I knew it was a test, Maya said. Did you? For those 5 minutes, were you Maya pretending to be Myra, or were you actually Myra? Maya opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She honestly wasn't sure. The transformation continued. She learned to walk differently. Myra had a slight hesitation in her step, a physical manifestation of uncertainty. She learned to speak with Myra's vocabulary, her patterns, her tells. When someone asked her a question, she learned to pause half a second longer than Maya would, to show Myra's careful consideration before speaking. She practiced lying until the lies felt like truth. When asked about her father, tears came naturally now. When discussing her money troubles, the stress in her voice was genuine. The character wasn't separate anymore. It was integrated, a second self she could slip into like changing clothes. By month 5, something disturbing happened. Maya was filling out paperwork, real paperwork for the operation, and she accidentally signed Myra Kovalenko instead of her real name. She stared at the signature for a full minute, feeling a chill run down her spine. It happens, Dr. Chen assured her when Maya mentioned it. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Just remember, Myra is a tool, not a replacement. When the mission is over, you'll need to put her away. But Maya wasn't sure it would be that simple. She was starting to think in Myra's voice, dream in Myra's memories, feel Myra's emotions. The line between the two identities was blurring, and she didn't know if that was the training working perfectly or something more dangerous. On the final day before her insertion, Carter conducted one last interview. Tell me who you are. Myra Kovalenko, 29 years old, Ukrainian immigrant, desperate for money and opportunity, willing to work in gray areas to survive. Wrong, Carter said. Try again. Maya, or was it Mira, looked at him confused. You're a woman who's been failed by every system designed to help her. You're angry, scared, and running out of options. You're not looking to become a criminal. You're looking for a way to survive in a world that doesn't care if you live or die. You're not pretending to be desperate. You are desperate. Can you feel that? And the terrifying thing was she could. Somewhere in the months of training, conditioning, and transformation, the desperation had become real. The anger at her situation had become genuine. Myra Kovalenko wasn't just a role anymore. She was alive. Good, Carter said, reading her expression. You're ready. Tomorrow you fly to Bucharest. From that moment until extraction, you are Myra Kovalenko. Maya Rodriguez is dead. Do you understand? Yes, she said, and even she wasn't sure which identity had answered. Bucharest in January was a city of gray stone and grayer skis. Myra Kovalenko. She thought of herself only as Myra now, because thinking Maya even once could get her killed. Stepped off the bus at Gare du Nord station with a single duffel bag and €300 in her pocket. The cold bit through her cheap jacket, and she pulled it tighter, hunching her shoulders in a way Maya Rodriguez never would have. Myra was smaller, more uncertain, always trying to take up less space in the world. The address Carter had given her led to a rundown apartment in Sector 5, a neighborhood where nobody asked questions because everybody had secrets. The landlord, a Romanian man with suspicious eyes and cigarette breath, barely glanced at her forged documents before taking 2 months' rent in cash. No trouble, he grunted in broken English. You make trouble, you leave. No trouble, Myra promised in Ukrainian-accented English, letting her voice carry the exhaustion of someone who'd traveled too far with too little. The apartment was a single room with a hot plate, a mattress on the floor, and a window that overlooked an alley filled with dumpsters. It was perfect, exactly where someone like Myra would end up. That night, lying on the thin mattress, Myra activated the subdermal communicator that had been surgically implanted behind her ear. A tiny device, undetectable except through advanced medical scanning, that could transmit whispered messages to a satellite receiver. Insertion successful, she whispered in the darkness. Beginning phase 2. Carter's voice came back, tinny and distant. Roger that. Remember, you're in complete control of the timeline. Don't rush. Let them come to you. Stay safe, operator. Operator, the word felt strange now. She wasn't sure she was an operator anymore. She was just Myra trying to survive. Club Diamond was exactly the kind of place traffickers recruited from. It sat on Strada Lipscani in Bucharest's old town, all red velvet and chrome, poolsing with electronic music that made conversation impossible. Myra got a job there through a friend of a friend connection that Carter's team had carefully arranged months earlier. Waitressing, bottle service, smiling at drunk men who grabbed at her, pocketing meager tips that barely covered her rent. She'd been working there for 6 weeks, watching, listening, learning the patterns. The club was owned by a man named Christian Popescu who had connections to organized crime. Certain girls who worked there would disappear, not violently, not dramatically, just transition to better opportunities. Jobs in Italy, they said, modeling in Germany. Everyone knew it was bullshit, but nobody talked about it. Myra made herself visible in specific ways. She asked questions about making more money. She mentioned needing to send cash back to family in Ukraine. She let it slip that she was willing to work flexible jobs if the pay was right. She was fishing, casting a line into dark waters, waiting for something to bite. On a Tuesday in March, Victor found her. He was maybe 40, well-dressed in a way that screamed money but not legitimate business. Gold watch, expensive shoes, and that predator's smile that pretended to be friendly. He came into the club during a slow afternoon and sat at the bar, ordering vodka and watching Myra work. When her shift ended, he approached. "You're Ukrainian," he said in Russian, which she spoke fluently. Not a question, a statement. "Yes," Myra replied carefully, switching languages, her posture defensive but interested. "You work hard. I notice hard workers." He pulled out a business card, blank except for a phone number. I have opportunities for people willing to work flexible jobs, transportation, deliveries, that kind of thing. Cash payment, no questions. Interested. Every instinct Maya had screamed danger. But Myra was desperate, and desperation made people take risks. What kind of deliveries? She asked. The kind where you drive from point A to point B and don't open the packages. You seem smart enough to understand discretion. His smile never reached his eyes. Call me if you want to make real money. Otherwise, enjoy your tips from drunk businessmen. He left the card and walked out. Myra stood there, turning the card over in her fingers, her heart hammering. This was it. The door was opening. All she had to do was walk through it. That night, she called the number. The first job was a test. Drive a car from Bucharest to Brasov, 2 hours away, deliver a package to an address, drive back. Don't look in the package. Don't ask questions. 500 euros. Myra took it. The package felt like documents, maybe drugs. She didn't open it. Good soldiers followed orders, even terrible orders, and Myra needed to prove she could follow these. The second job was crossing the border into Moldova. 1,000 euros. The customs agents waved her through without checking the trunk. She realized later that they were paid off, part of the network. By the fourth job, they trusted her enough to tell her more. Victor introduced her to others, Alexei, who ran operations in Ukraine, Dmitry, who handled logistics, and finally Goran, a Serbian who seemed to be higher up the chain. You're reliable, Goran said during a meeting in a warehouse outside Bucharest. Not many women are. Most get emotional, ask too many questions. You just do the work. I just need the money, Myra replied, which was Myra's truth even if it wasn't Maya's. Good, we have a bigger opportunity. Long-term work, better pay, but it requires travel, maybe 2-3 months away. Turkey, Syria, that region. You interested? Syria, the mission target. Maya's pulse quickened, but Myra just nodded slowly, calculating. How much? 10,000 euros. But you'll be part of the logistics team, moving product, managing transfers, that kind of thing. It's not dangerous if you follow instructions. Product? They meant people. Women and children being trafficked like cargo. Maya wanted to put a bullet in Goran's head right there, but Myra needed this opportunity. I'll do it, she said. The journey took 2 weeks, first to Istanbul, then to the Turkish-Syrian border, finally to a compound outside Aleppo. Myra traveled with 3 other women, all Ukrainian or Romanian, all desperate, all willing to work in the gray areas for money. They bonded over shared fear and false hope. The compound was fortified, high walls, armed guards, and operational headquarters for a network that stretched across 3 continents. Myra's role was inventory management, which meant documenting shipments, recording where people came from, where they were going, how much they'd bring at destination. It made her sick. She documented everything, names, ages, conditions. The subdermal transmitter sent encrypted data every night while she pretended to sleep. But nothing prepared her for the holding areas. 3 weeks into her time at the compound, she was asked to verify a new shipment. She walked into a converted warehouse basement and found them, 43 people. Mostly women, some teenagers, a few children. They were kept in cages, given minimal food and water, treated like livestock awaiting transport. One girl, maybe 15, looked at Myra with eyes that held a question. Are you here to help us or hurt us? Myra wanted to scream. Maya wanted to start shooting. But she had to maintain cover, had to play the role, had to gather intelligence for the raid that would save them all, if the raid came in time. That night she whispered into the transmitter, I have eyes on captives, 43 souls. They're planning transport in 48 hours. I need that SEAL team now, Carter. I need them now or these people are gone forever. The response took 3 agonizing hours. Stand by, evaluating options, do not compromise your position. Myra lay in her bunk in the compound staff quarters, listening to the guards laugh and drink outside, and made a decision. If the SEALs couldn't get here in time, she'd have to act alone. She'd blow her cover, probably get killed, but she wasn't going to let these people disappear into a trafficking pipeline that would destroy them. She disobeyed orders before to save innocent lives. She'd do it again. The next morning she began planning. The compound had security vulnerabilities. She documented them all. There was a generator room, weapons storage, guard rotations with gaps. If she could create enough chaos, maybe some of the captives could escape. It wouldn't be a rescue, it would be desperate improvisation. But Maya Rodriguez had never been very good at sitting still while people suffered. On the second night, 47 hours after her transmission, Carter's voice finally came back. "Extraction team is 50 miles out. They're coming. Can you hold position?" Myra looked at the schedule on her desk. Transport trucks were arriving at 600 hours. The SEALs would be too late. "Negative," she whispered. "I'm moving to Plan B. Operator, do not compromise." She turned off the transmitter. Some orders were meant to be disobeyed. Myra stood up, took a breath, and became Maya Rodriguez again. It was time to do what she'd always done best, fight for the people who couldn't fight for themselves, even if it killed her. The raid was coming, but she was starting at early 0247 hours, 3 hours and 13 minutes until the transport trucks arrived. Maya moved through the compound's corridors like a shadow, her heart hammering against her ribs but her hands perfectly steady. She disabled the security camera in the east hallway by accidentally spilling cleaning solution on the junction box during her evening rounds. The guards were used to seeing her now, just Myra, the quiet Ukrainian girl who did her job and didn't cause trouble. They had no idea who she really was. The generator room was in the compound's basement, a concrete bunker that powered everything: lights, security systems, the electronic locks on the holding cells. Maya had memorized its layout during her second week, knotting the diesel tanks, the electrical panels, the emergency shutoff valve that someone had helpfully labeled in both Arabic and English. 2 guards stood outside, smoking and talking about a football match. Maya approached with a bucket and mop, playing her role perfectly. "Power surge in Block C," she said in broken Arabic, gesturing with frustration. "They send me to check generator. Always something broken in this place." The guards laughed. The stupid woman sent to fix things she didn't understand. They waved her through, barely glancing at the bucket that contained more than just cleaning supplies. Inside the generator room, Maya worked fast. She had maybe 3 minutes before someone got suspicious. From the bucket, she pulled materials she'd been stockpiling for 2 days: fertilizer from the compound's garden supplies, diesel fuel she'd siphoned from maintenance vehicles, and a length of electrical wire. Basic ingredients for an improvised explosive device. Not military grade, not sophisticated, but it would do the job. The Army hadn't taught her this, but the SEALs had. "When you're alone and desperate," Instructor Garrett had said during training, "use what you have. Creativity beats technology." Maya rigged the device near the main fuel line, setting a timer with a modified watch, 15 minutes. Enough time to reach the holding cells. Not enough time for second thoughts. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, muscle memory taking over while her mind stayed ice cold and focused. She walked out past the guards, bucket in hand, mop over her shoulder. "Fixed," she said, shrugging. They waved her off, already back to their conversation. 2:54 hours. The compound was quiet except for the hum of the generator, the distant sound of guards on the walls, the whisper of wind across Syrian sand. Maya made her way toward the holding areas, her route carefully planned to avoid the main guard posts. The electronic locks were biometric fingerprint scanners, but there was always a backup. Maya had watched the guards long enough to know they kept an override tablet in the supervisor's office. Getting to it meant crossing the main courtyard, exposed and visible. She didn't have a choice. Maya stepped into the open, walking with purpose but not haste. Just Myra, heading back to her quarters after a late shift. A guard on the wall called down something in Arabic. She waved, kept moving. Her skin crawled with the certainty that any second someone would realize something was wrong. The supervisor's office was unlocked. Overconfidence was the network's weakness. She found the tablet, her fingers flying across the screen, entering the override code she'd memorized from watching over the supervisor's shoulder 3 days ago. The system accepted it. Every cell door in the holding area was now unlocked, but they wouldn't open until she triggered them manually. She had to get there first. 3:02 hours, 13 minutes until the explosion. Maya ran now, abandoning pretense, sprinting toward the holding area. Behind her, someone shouted. They'd noticed her trajectory, realized something was happening. She heard boots on concrete, the metallic snap of weapons being readied. She reached the holding area doors and slammed her hand on the emergency release. The locks disengaged with a heavy clunk. She pulled the doors open and screamed in Arabic, then Pashto, then Ukrainian. "Get out! Run! They're coming for you!" The captives stared at her, not comprehending, paralyzed by months or years of learned helplessness. The 15-year-old girl met her eyes, the same one who'd looked at her with that question days ago. Now Maya roared, and the girl moved, pulling others with her. Then the shooting started. Guards poured into the corridor, weapons raised. Maya grabbed a metal chair and hurled it at the nearest one, buying seconds. She had no weapon, no backup, no plan beyond creating enough chaos that some of these people might escape. This was suicide, she knew it, but it was the right thing to do. Then the compound exploded. The generator room detonated with a roar that shook the earth, plunging everything into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on red, insufficient, disorienting. The guards hesitated, confused, and in that moment of hesitation, everything changed. The compound walls exploded inward. Breaching charges, precision explosives, and through the dust and smoke came shadows that moved like predators, SEAL team operators in full tactical gear, night vision cutting through the darkness, weapons up and ready. "Friendlies in the holding area," Maya screamed. "Don't shoot the CAPTIVES." A guard wheeled toward her, AK-47 rising. She dove behind a concrete pillar as rounds chewed through the space where she'd been standing. Her training kicked in: assess, act, survive. She spotted a weapon on the ground, a guard who'd been hit by the explosion, and she moved. Maya grabbed the AK-47, checked the magazine by feel, flipped off the safety. Muscle memory. She'd sworn she'd never hold one of these weapons again after Afghanistan, but here she was, and there were people who needed protecting. The firefight was brutal and fast. The SEALs moved through the compound like a surgical strike, clean shots, disciplined fire, overwhelming force. Maya positioned herself between the captives and the incoming fire, laying down suppressing fire toward positions where guards had taken cover. "American operator," she shouted toward the SEAL team. "Friendly, friendly." A SEAL appeared at her side, weapon trained past her at threats. "Get them out," he barked. "We'll cover." Maya herded the captives toward the breach point, pushing them through, counting heads. 20, 30, 40. The girl was there, helping the younger ones. A woman clutched a child who couldn't have been more than 4 years old. An explosion rocked the compound. Somewhere, the SEALs were clearing rooms with precision violence. Maya heard the controlled bursts of M4 rifles, the sporadic return fire of panicked guards, the shouted commands in English that meant professionals were executing a plan. She was turning back to help more captives when pain exploded in her chest. The first round hit her center mass, slamming into the ceramic plate of the tactical vest she'd stolen from a guard earlier. The impact drove the air from her lungs, sent her stumbling backward. The second hit her vest again, Same plate, different angle, spiderwebbing the ceramic. The third round caught her in the right shoulder, above the vest, and this one went through. Maya went down hard, vision graying, her shoulder erupting in liquid fire. The AK-47 clattered away. She tried to get up, couldn't, tried to breathe, couldn't do that either. Blood spread warm across her shirt. Through fading vision, she saw a SEAL drop the shooter with 2 precise shots. Then he was kneeling beside her, gloved hands applying pressure to her shoulder. Medic, friendly wounded. The firefight continued around them, 7 minutes that felt like 7 hours. Maya drifted in and out, aware of more SEALs arriving, of captives being led to safety, of zip cuffs being applied to prisoners. When the shooting finally stopped, the silence was almost worse than the gunfire. A familiar face appeared above her. Carter, somehow already here, somehow always knowing exactly when to appear. "You did it, soldier," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. 43 souls, 7 high-value targets in custody, evidence secured, the network is broken. Maya tried to speak, managed only a wheeze. Her shoulder felt like someone had driven a railroad spike through it. "Medic's coming," Carter assured her. "You're going home, Rodriguez, real home this time, you've earned it." As the medic worked on her shoulder, injecting something that made the pain recede into distant thunder, Maya looked past Carter at the people filing out of the compound. Free, alive, safe. The girl, the 15-year-old, caught her eye one last time. She didn't smile, couldn't smile, not after everything she'd endured, but she nodded. A small acknowledgement, you helped, you mattered. Maya closed her eyes, letting the medic work, letting the adrenaline drain away. She'd survived Hell Week, survived becoming someone else, survived the infiltration and the raid. Now she just had to survive being Maya Rodriguez again. If that was even still possible. 6 months later, Maya Rodriguez sat in a conference room that didn't officially exist, in a building that had no name, in a part of Virginia that tourists never visited. Her shoulder had healed, leaving a puckered scar she'd carry for the rest of her life. Physical therapy had been brutal, relearning to use her arm, rebuilding strength she'd lost during 3 weeks in a military hospital in Germany. The doctors said she was lucky. The bullet had missed major arteries by millimeters. 2 inches to the left and she'd have bled out in that Syrian compound. Lucky, she supposed that was one word for it. Carter sat across from her, looking the same as always, calm, composed, utterly unreadable. Next to him was a Navy commander whose name she hadn't been given, wearing dress whites with ribbons that told stories of classified operations and dangerous places. Between them sat a folder marked with security classifications Maya had never seen before. "The Syrian operation exceeded all expectations," Carter began. 43 civilians recovered and repatriated. 7 high-value targets in custody, providing intelligence that's already led to arrests in 6 countries. The trafficking network you infiltrated has been dismantled across 3 continents. Conservative estimates suggest you've prevented thousands of future victims. The commander leaned forward. "The intelligence you gathered has been called the most significant breakthrough in counter-trafficking operations in a decade. You did what entire task forces couldn't accomplish in years." Maya said nothing. She'd learned in the past 6 months that heroism didn't feel the way they showed it in movies. It felt like exhaustion, like the weight of faces you couldn't forget, like wondering if you'd done enough when you knew you could never do enough. Carter slid the folder across the table. "This is your official service record. Fully restored, all disciplinary actions expunged. 2 additional commendations for valor, classified of course. Your security clearance reinstated at a higher level, and a promotion to Master Sergeant, effective immediately." Maya opened the folder. Her entire military history, rewritten as if Kandahar had never happened, as if the dismissal had been a nightmare she'd imagined. Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez was officially recognized again, decorated, respected, Everything she'd lost had been returned. "There's more," the commander said. "You're being offered a return to conventional service with Special Operations Command. Training position, advisory role, whatever you want. Full benefits, retirement track, the whole package. You've earned it, Rodriguez. You can finally come in from the cold." It was everything she'd wanted 6 months ago. Hell, it was everything she'd wanted her entire adult life. Recognition, stability, the ability to tell her mother the truth, to rebuild relationships she'd sacrificed, to sleep without checking exits and assessing threats, to be Maya Rodriguez again, fully and completely. Or, Carter said quietly, there's option 2. He pulled out a second folder, this one thinner. No classifications marked on the outside, just a number. The mission in Syria was just one operation. The task force has identified 17 similar networks operating globally. We need someone who can do what you did: infiltrate, gather intelligence, coordinate direct action. Someone who's proven they can survive deep cover, make hard decisions, and complete the mission when everything goes wrong. Maya looked at the folder but didn't touch it. "You're asking me to disappear again." "I'm asking you to continue the work. Different covers, different targets, same objective: save people who can't save themselves." Carter's expression softened slightly. "I won't lie to you, Rodriguez. This life is hard. You'll miss weddings, funerals, birthdays. Your family will continue thinking you're a struggling veteran who can't get her life together. You'll have no public recognition, no career progression anyone will ever see, no normal relationships. You'll live in the shadows, and when you die, if you die, only a handful of people will ever know what you sacrificed." The commander added, "But you'll also have the satisfaction of knowing you're making a real difference. The people you save in Syria, they're home now, rebuilding their lives. That girl you protected during the raid, she's in school in Germany, learning to smile again. That only happened because you were willing to become someone else, to do the impossible, to walk into darkness so others could reach the light." Maya stared at both folders. 2 futures, 2 identities, 2 completely different lives. She thought about her mother in Colorado, still worried about her, still calling weekly with that carefully neutral tone that said she was trying to be supportive while clearly being terrified. She thought about her brother, graduating college soon, asking when she'd visit. She thought about the normal life that had been taken from her, that was now being offered back. Then she thought about the 15-year-old girl's face, the nod of acknowledgement, the 43 souls who'd walked out of that compound alive because someone had been willing to sacrifice everything to save them. She thought about the 17 other networks Carter had mentioned. Hundreds or thousands of people trapped right now, being used, being destroyed, with no one coming to help them. Maya picked up the second folder, opened it. Inside was a new identity, partial details, just enough to show her what was coming. Elena Volkov, Russian national, history in private security, approach vector through Moscow underworld connections. "How long?" she asked. 8 months of preparation. Language intensification, cultural immersion, building the legend. Insertion projected for next spring. "And after that?" Carter met her eyes. "However long it takes, could be a year, could be 3. You'll have support better than Syria. We've learned from that operation. But it'll still be dangerous, still be isolating, still be a life lived in the margins." The commander spoke up. "Rodriguez, you don't have to decide right now. Take time, think about it, talk to the psych." "I'll do it," Maya said. Both men paused. "You're sure?" Carter asked. "This is?" "I'm sure." Maya looked at the folders again, one offering restoration, one offering sacrifice. "What happened at Fort Bragg, the dismissal, all of it? You said it was theater, but it taught me something true. I'm not the kind of soldier who looks good in parades or gives speeches at recruitment events. I'm the kind who does what needs to be done when no one's watching." She closed the second folder. "Those 43 people are alive because I was willing to disappear. How many more could I save if I keep doing this? How many Rashids could I prevent from dying in crossfire? How many families could I keep together? Carter nodded slowly. You understand what you're giving up. I understand what I'm gaining. Maya stood, the movement natural now, her shoulder fully healed. Purpose, real purpose, not following orders for a paycheck or serving abstract concepts, actually saving real people from real monsters. That's worth more than any promotion, any recognition, any normal life. The commander stood as well, extending his hand. Welcome to the program, Operator Rodriguez, officially and permanently. Maya shook his hand, then Carter's. The choice was made. Maya Rodriguez would continue to exist on paper, a troubled veteran, struggling civilian, the cautionary tale other soldiers whispered about, the perfect cover for the missions ahead. But underneath that cover, she would be something else entirely, a ghost moving through the world's darkest spaces, a weapon aimed at the people who profited from suffering, a protector of those who had no other protection. Some heroes marched in parades, medals gleaming, crowds cheering. Those heroes deserved every bit of recognition they received. But some heroes operated differently. They wore no uniforms, carried no flags, left no names on memorial walls. They walked into the darkness and stayed there, fighting battles no one would ever hear about, saving lives no one would ever thank them for saving. Maya Rodriguez had finally found her war. Not the one fought on CNN, but the one fought in Syrian compounds and Romanian nightclubs, and wherever else evil thought it could operate unseen. As she walked out of the conference room, her official service record restored but immediately to be hidden again, she felt something she hadn't felt since before Kandahar. Peace. Not because her life would be easy, it would be anything but. Not because she'd be safe, she'd be in constant danger. Not because she'd be recognized, she'd remain invisible. But because she'd finally figured out who Maya Rodriguez really was. She was the person who showed up when everyone else had given up. The one who disobeyed orders to save lives. The one willing to sacrifice everything, including her own identity, to protect the innocent. The files called her Operator Rodriguez. The people she'd saved would never know her name. But in the darkness, where the real battles were fought and won, Maya Rodriguez had finally found where she belonged. And she was just getting started. The end.
Ore, nel senso che verso le 8 ore arrivavo al finale e invece verso le 10 sono arrivato al finale, quindi iniziava a essere stancante. Non mi sarei goduto il finale, ci avrei messo una vita. Probabilmente un finale che mi avrebbe preso dalle 3 alle 5 ore, che magari oggi in 2 ore finiamo. Quindi oggi sono di buonissimo umore, ragazzi. È sabato, vedo il sole fuori. Stasera mi ammazzo di Ark Riders. Ieri sera mi sono ammazzato di Blue Prince a livelli astronomici, astrofisici. Tanto che ho visto che c'è Tifa in maratona, quindi dopo andiamo da Tifa. Che sta facendo Blue Prince?